Welcome everyone to AA on the Rocks. My name is Wendy and I'm an alcoholic. Let's open the meeting with a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Our speaker and 12-step series presenter for July is Bill H. He'll kick us off tonight with steps 10 through 12.
Got to have the Oreos, baby. My name is Bill. I am an alcoholic. Hi. Dangerous term. What? Hi. Dangerous term around people like you. Hi. I can't handle it. I'm going to go get it. Hi. She is really ticking me off. I'm going to go get it. Hi. Okay, my name is Bill. I am an alcoholic. Can we get a little more enthusiasm in the hall? Can we afford to get? And the answer is no. In closing, if you want to keep it simple, welcome back. 1 year. Or no, 1 week. What are you? Yeah, congrats. You're the guy walking through the airport saying, ha, 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 at the saloon, right? You're that guy. I love it. I wish I'd have thought to do it. I'd love to have that as part of my story. I went to a meeting at 1:30 this afternoon, a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that I go to almost every Wednesday afternoon. There's only 10 or 12 of us at the meeting, and half of us are here tonight. And I'm grateful for that. And I heard some good things said, and I'm going to start off my talk about steps 10, 11, and 12 with this one from my friend Terry, who said in the middle of his share, and I'm not even sure he remembers saying it, but it's one of the most profound things I've ever heard in Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sobriety date's March 18th, 1981, so I've heard a lot of stuff. Some of it's been helpful. I've heard a lot of stuff in AA. Harry said today, I came in here and know it all. Are you with me so far? When I knew it all, whatever other people say is useless. You may not like that, but I think it's a pearl. What's that got to do with step 10, 11, and 12? Well, we talked about first 9 steps the last few sessions. We talked about building our spiritual foundation in the first 9 steps. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Now, I've been powerless over alcohol since the day I was born. Didn't know it. Didn't have to admit it because it never occurred to me. I drank in 1960. I was in prison by 1966. And by January of 67, I'd been diagnosed as an alcoholic. And I didn't disagree by that time. I had plenty of evidence on my side to prove, even to me, that I was an alcoholic. But I drank for 14 more years because I thought I could control it. So in step 1, I admit I'm an alcoholic and I admit my life is unmanageable. So I'm starting to get over the delusion that even if I am an alcoholic, I can manage it on my own, which I cannot. That was the beginning of the end of me being a know-it-all. But it was not the end. And I can still be, now this may surprise you. Hello, whoever's on Zoom. I know it's going to shock some of you like Al. I can still be a know-it-all. Aren't you as surprised as I am? And the problem with being a know-it-all, I don't know I'm being a know-it-all when I'm being a know-it-all. Because self-will tells me I'm fine. I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable. I came to believe in a power greater than me that isn't me. And I made a decision, and I got on my knees, and I got a sponsor, and I took step 3, and I stood up, and I started writing the 4th step. And I got in touch with those resentments and those fears and that inconsiderate sexual behavior, which turned out affected all parts of all relationships, not just in the bedroom or the back seat. And I began to see that I had contributed somewhat to my problems. I had a small part to play, but I had a part to play, and I started to take responsibility for that. And I tried to stop doing some of the things that I discovered in my fifth step with the help of my sponsor. I tried to stop doing those on my own, just like I tried to stop drinking on my own. Another great thing said in the meeting today, my friend, Pat said it. He said, I never had trouble stopping drinking. And I agree with that. I stopped drinking how many times? 1,000 times? 10,000 times? My problem was not stopping. I couldn't stop starting. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. There are people here tonight newly sober, first week, first month, first year. There are people here tonight with decades. Decades of not drinking. But every one of us here tonight, alcoholic, well, Al-Anon's too, although it probably won't affect you so bad. There's no guarantee that we'll stop starting. And that's why when I try to let go of some of those things like the resentments, the sarcasm, the fear, the overwhelming need for attention, the overwhelming need for control, the overwhelming need to be right. If you disagreed with me and asked me to agree with you, then we'd both be wrong. That kind of attitude. I started becoming willing to let go of that stuff in step 6, and I found out I couldn't do it. I could not learn to live without that stuff, without God's help, and so I asked God to help me in step 7. I made that list of people I'd harmed and did pray over each of those names until I became willing to make amends to them one at a time, and did those 9 steps. And here we are at step 10. Why? Look at page 84 in the big book. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue. A couple words later, and continue. A couple words later, and continue. Step 10 is the continue step. It's not magic. It says this thought. What thought? The thought that precedes it at the top of page 84. These promises, we've just read the promises, bottom of 83, top of 84. These promises will always materialize if we work for them. Now that's a promise about the promises. We just read these promises. We're coming off the first 9 steps. We got a spiritual foundation in place. And we read. Or we hear someone else read. Or we hear someone say in a meeting, these promises keep coming true. As if that's the sentence. There is not one promise in the book or the program of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that is not conditional. You can talk about unconditional love all day. I think it's wonderful. Only God can do it, but y'all can talk about it. I'm not capable of unconditional love. I'm human. I'm imperfect. But every promise in the big book is conditional, and that's not a punishment. It's a fact. If I want something out of this deal, I got to be willing to put something in this deal. And I got to be willing to put a lot more in this deal than just starting. If I think I'm here tonight in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous just so I can stop starting, that ought to be a country western song. Stop starting. Get me a dog and a pickup truck, and I'm going to stop starting. How am I doing so far, Chuck? You're not writing anything down. I'm not doing too well. These promises will always materialize if we work. Now, I will tell you this. It's a 1 day at a time program. The only days that I need to work for these promises to keep growing in my life are the days that end in Y. All you people are straight to me. Should never have started with high. Must have really distracted you. So do you want to know how to keep working for them? Man. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory That's not a punishment. It's not a process for personal shaming. It's not a process to use to beat up on myself. It's just a kind of a streamlined version of steps 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, and 9. Step 10 repackages the spiritual principles and the prayers of steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 into a neat little, really 2 sets of 4-piece instructions on page 84 of the big book that allow me to continue to take personal inventory, and when I do well, admit it, not brag about it, but be grateful for it. And when I'm wrong, to promptly admit it. Let's read exactly what the book says, because this is step 10. Step 10 is not, according to the big book, step 10 is not a nightly inventory. We're going to get to step 11 in a minute. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the nightly inventory is part of step 11, which really reviews how well I did step 10 throughout the day. If you want the promises in the big book, my suggestion and my experience says do the work to the best of our ability, the way the big book says to do it. Here's what it says on page 84. This thought continues to bring us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right the new mistakes as we go along. The word suggests in that sentence and many other places in the book gives people like me trouble. Because I think it really is well, you can do it if you want, but you don't have to. My friend down in Arkansas used to say, suggest is in this context in the big book. You're about to jump out of an airplane. A perfectly good airplane that is flying smooth and well. But you're going to jump out of it at 10,000 feet because you want to take a ride on a parachute. And we suggest after you jump out of the airplane and get clear of the craft, you pull the ripcord. We suggest that you do that. Now, do you have to do that? No. Go ahead, y'all. Jump out of the plane. Well, I've got a parachute on. I don't really like suggestions. I don't really like people telling me what to do. Well, they know anyway. They're up in an airplane. I'm not. I mean, it's beautiful out here. I'm sailing. I'm floating. To heck with their suggestion. Right. And you're dead. That's the context of the word suggest in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Please don't let people lead you into believing this stuff is optional. If you not only want to stop starting drinking, but learn to live comfortable. I mean, really at peace most of the time, no matter the shitstorm you're living in. If you really want to live at peace, we suggest continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. That means you can start doing step 10 somewhere between 4 and 9. It's not cheating to read ahead in the book. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Here's the first set of 4. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So you turn on your radar in the morning. Start watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. If you're like me, they're not going to be hard to find. Selfishness, I assume I wake up selfish. I ask God to help me not take a drink, help me be of service to others, help me not become part of their problem. First 3 things I do before I get out of bed in the morning. I start treating selfishness before I get out of bed. I assume it's there. I heard somebody say the other day, well, self-will is my default position. Nonsense. You're human. Self-will is my primary setting. There's no default about it. So I just assume I'm going to have to treat some selfishness all day long. Dishonesty? What's my biggest dishonesty? I don't need help today. That's a fraud. I'm human. I have self-will, I have free will, and without the help of you, people like you, people who understand me like people like you understand me and like I understand you, without your help and the God of my understanding that you led me to. Without that help, I'll be dishonest and think I'm pure as the driven snow. Resentment. Anybody rub you wrong today? Anybody misbehave out here in the parking lot when you were coming in and they damn near backed into you? It was their fault. The sun was in my eyes. It's always their fault. And fear. And then it says those are 4 things to watch for: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That's all step 10 asks. Don't have to write it down all day long. Just be aware. Be aware of our shortcomings, our limitations, our need for help. So we watch for those 4 things. Then it says this neat word. I wish it said if. If these crop up. No, it's the big book. When these crop up. Because they will. Mrs. J, they will crop up. When they crop up, we do 4 things. Now watch this. We ask God at once. That doesn't say wait till tonight. If I want the promises in the big book to come true, I ought to do the work in the big book the way it says. Ask God at once to remove them. God help me. I say, God help me at least 100, maybe 100 times a day. Second thing, we discuss them with someone immediately, at least as soon as you can. Why? To see if I owe an amend. I think a lot of wrong things and catch myself now with God's help before I say them or do them. But I'm still not always sure if I've hurt somebody or owe an amend. So I talk to somebody about it. And it says we discuss them immediately, which practically speaking, as soon as I can. Make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. So look at these. Ask God at once. Discuss them with someone immediately. Make amends quickly. This is a in the present, right now application of self-examination as part of my living spiritually one day at a time. That's what page 84 tells me to do. And then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. We have stopped fighting anyone or anything. Step 10 promises run on page 84 and 85. Like we've stopped fighting anyone or anything. This is astonishing. We will react sanely and normally. Remember what we asked for in step 2? Restoration of sanity. We're getting it back in step 10 because we got 9 steps under our belt and we're starting to repeat them one day at a time in step 10. It doesn't say life doesn't still suck. It doesn't say we won't have things to react to or respond to or deal with that we always like. No, it says we deal with it sanely and normally. We're not fighting it. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Here's the step 10 caution. The warning, we are not cured. You may not be drinking, but we still have alcoholism, ISM, I, self, me. I'm dealing with self-will and the potential of self-will run riot every day I wake up. I have the potential of self taking over again, leaving God out, not caring what happens to you. I'm not cured of self-will run riot. And we have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Page 84 just told me how to maintain. What page 84 does is keep me out of God's way enough to get God's help. So that's why the little prayer on page 85 says, thy will, madam, thy will not mine be done. The not mine is in parentheses. Step 10 is the not mine step. Keep me enough out of God's way so I can still get help from God. That's all it is. Takes practice. If you're not used to doing this, it'll take practice to do it. I sponsor a lot of men who started doing page 84 several years into their sobriety, and it fundamentally changed their recovery. Let's look at step 11. Turn the page. It says we suggest prayer and meditation using it constantly, top of page 86. Now watch this. Here it is again. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. What's the proper attitude? I need to learn to pray. but I don't know how to pray. We don't care. I need to learn to pray, which means ask God for help. And I need to learn to meditate. Listen to God's help. Ask and listen. This is not complicated. You don't have to learn Eastern meditation. You don't have to buy crystals down at the head shop. Can if you want to, but don't buy the other crap that's in there. But those are not requirements. What are requirements are what the book says. The book not only has our answers, the book has our questions. If I convince you of one thing in the last 4 sessions, the book not only has the answers, it has the questions. And here's an answer to an implied question. Page 86, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. We're resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid. It's a review of step 10. How well did I do step 10 throughout the day? The evening review, or the end of the day if you work nights, the end of your day could be 8 o'clock in the morning. Just review, how well did I do? Take credit for what you did well. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? He goes on a lot of other things to check. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness. Do we ask God to forgive us because God has forgotten to forgive us? No. We ask God to forgive us to open ourselves to receive the forgiveness God has already given us. This is not tapping God on the shoulder and say, dude, did you forget me? Can you forgive me? No. It's opening me to receive the forgiveness God's already trying to give me. And that process started back on page 67 in the 4-step inventory when I started to pray, God save me from being angry. On awakening, middle of page 86, step 11 continues. We ask God to direct our thinking. Now watch this. Divorce my thinking from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. We've gone below action. We've gone deeper than just thinking. We've gone deeper than just how we feel about it. We're down to motives. I only missed that word for 25 years. I thought they snuck it in. In step 11, I asked God to help me with my motives. Is it possible I might have a selfish motive? Is it possible I may have a dishonest motive? Is it possible I don't know what they are? You're learning. See, this stuff isn't that hard. We ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. Here's a step 11 promise. This is in our quiet time in the morning. We relax and take it easy. Doesn't mean the butterflies still aren't floating around my head. Doesn't mean I still don't have agitation and doubt. Doesn't mean I'm not restless, irritable, and discontent. But I don't use booze to deal with it. I ask God to help me deal. Our job is to ask, not to get. I hear people all the time, well, I try to pray and I try to meditate, but I can't get comfortable. We're trying to get. That's control. Just ask. If you go back through this book, beginning with the step 3 prayer on page 63, when we kneel and ask God, I offer myself to thee. I offer. I'm not here to get. I offer. This becomes a program of giving in, giving up, giving over, so we can receive. This is not a program of getting, except to get out of the way. Step 10 and 11, help me get me out of the way, one day at a time, so I can receive what God's trying to give me. So learn to pray and meditate as asking and opening, relaxing, so we can receive. Bottom of page 87. I just love this. As we go through the day, we pause. How many people came in here as really good Olympic-style pausers? A lot of people came in and are willing to wait well. We don't wait at all. We wait poorly. Pause and agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. That means work step 10. On my book, there's a line from the bottom of page 87 back to page 84. Step 10 and step 11 are a continuous 24-hour wheel of keeping me out of the way so God can come in. Keeping me out of the way so God can come in. And I'm always treating selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Those are the 4 bigs. And the prayer in 88, interestingly enough, prayer on page 88, thy will be done. The not mine is not there anymore. Not mine is step 10, thy will be done is 11. And there's a warning. There's a step 11 caution on page 88. I didn't like this. I didn't even read this for years. We alcoholics are undisciplined. Say it isn't so, Martha. And he goes on to say, so we let God discipline us in this simple way. This isn't discipline as punishment. This is discipline as routine. Anybody here go to the gym? Anybody here got a treadmill at home? Anybody here work out? Don't be shy. It's okay if the others envy you a little bit. They have a step for that. You go down and do your workout, you're exercising a discipline. You're doing a routine. You're following a helpful set of instructions that are there to make you feel better, do better, be better. That's all discipline means, but it is a promise, and the caution is we won't do that on our own. So let's talk for a little bit about step 12. Having had. Interesting verb. Having had. Not over. Still going on. Having had has been happening, but it's still happening. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The result of these steps is far more than stopping, starting, drinking, or stopping, picking up. We're here for far more than not to drink. We're here to have this spiritual awakening, whatever that is. Same 12 steps, different spiritual awakening in every person here, every person on the Zoom. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, the result. Everything else is bonus. Get along with the dog better, get along with the kids better. Hell, the kids talk to us again. They let us stay with the grandkids alone. Who saw that come? But the spiritual awakening is what happened. It does anybody's book say having had a spiritual graduation? Does your book say spiritual graduation? Anybody? Then we should stop treating it like that. Heard a man say today he goes to 4 meetings a week, 3 morning, early day meetings, but there's that night meeting. And he's been out helping the dog, doing his meditation, doing chores for his wife. He got a golf game in, according to him, when he shared today. Came back home, did something else. No, I'm pretty tired, took a nap. I don't have to go to that meeting tonight. Been there, done that, eh? But that's one of my 4, if that's one of my 4 anchor meetings, as I call them. Who there needs my help, and I'm not there tonight, they don't get my help, and they don't know it, and I don't know it. Only God knows it. We'll never know what would have happened if I'd been there. Not just what help I'm going to get, who's going to need my help. Somebody may just need to see me walk in the door and say, my God, if he can do it one more time, I can do it one more time. We don't know. See the know-it-all? We don't know how God is using our spiritual awakening today to help another alcoholic, or just to help some citizen that doesn't know us from a box of rocks, that they see us handle a really bad customer service clerk at Walmart, Not that that could happen. I'm not picking on Walmart. If you work for Walmart, don't take it personal. Or if you want to, talk to your sponsor. And they see you handle it with grace and dignity. You'll never know what they saw, but you're a good example to another citizen. We do not know how God is going to use our spiritual awakening. And that's a good thing. Because if I did, I'd screw it up. I'm always trying to get in God's way anyway, even with a good motive. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps matters not how long it's been since we had a drink. God isn't done with us yet. If he were, we wouldn't be here. We'd be upstairs somewhere. And I don't mean where they're singing. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps should make us grateful and humble. It makes me grateful and humble every day. There's two other parts of the step. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics. Well, you're doing that tonight by showing up. I'm doing it tonight by showing up. But the verb is try. We try to carry the message. We do not try to carry the alcoholic. As tempting as it is. Because after all, we know what's good for them. But we can't afford that. There's a whole chapter, working with others. If you had the handout, I've got a brief little comment or two about pages 89 to 103 in the big book. We tried to carry this message to alcoholic. That chapter is divided into two parts. It's called Working with Others. The first half of the chapter, pages 89 to 96, 7 pages, are all about getting ready for and having the first visit with a newcomer. The first half of that chapter, chapter 7, is to prepare us, tell us what to do and what not to do. It's 7 pages of do's and don'ts. Getting ready to have the first visit with a newcomer. And one of the things it says to be helpful is our only aim. Talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you know what it feels like. And you offer a solution, just like Bill did to Dr. Bob, May of 1935. Tell him exactly what happened to you, including your spiritual awakening, the beginning of your relationship with the God of your understanding. He does not have to agree with your conception of God. It says on page 83. It goes on to say the main thing is, this is in italics in the big book on page 83. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. It's called steps 1 through 12. That's what our spiritual principles are. Outline the program of action, self-appraisal, straightened out your past, now endeavoring to be helpful to him. The rest of the chapter, pages 96 to 103, is basically a guide of ongoing sponsorship. On the handout, I put sponsorship in quotes because, yes, the word sponsor is not in that chapter. So what? Neither is iceberg. Doesn't mean icebergs. Stay with me, Robbo. It doesn't mean icebergs aren't real. The whole chapter is about what we call today sponsorship. I get a kick out of it. Well, the word sponsor isn't in the big book. Neither is iceberg. Doesn't make it not real. You'll remember that, won't you? Yes, you will. Thank you. I've done my job. I'm leaving now. If you can get through to Robbo, you've had a hell of a day. Am I right or not?
Yes.
Amen. And because you're an alcoholic, you know I'm not picking on you. You're loving the attention. And it's going to be on the damn recording forever. Robbo is famous. Finally, I'm famous. How am I doing so far? Everybody said great but Robbo. I'm not sure with that. On page 98. Page 98. The only condition is that he trusted God and clean house. That's a one-sentence summary of the 12 steps in the spiritual awakening of Alcoholics Anonymous. Trust in God, clean house. Keep doing it one day at a time. He says on page 100, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. It's not spiritual graduation. It's ongoing spiritual awakening. And your job now is to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness. That's on page 102, but it echoes the real purpose statement on page 77. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God, people about us. Well, then in the third part of step 12, then we tried to practice these principles in all our affairs. The next 4 chapters in the big book, the wives, a family afterward, 2 employers, and a vision for you. I sometimes call the road less traveled. A lot of people in AA don't think we need to read those. Most people in AA do not take the responsees to those chapters. I recommend you do because of one reason. There's lots of spiritual principle application. To wives is about the marriage. Call it to spouses. Call it to significant other. What a terrible term. That's my opinion. Significant other? Never have understood that. But I digress. Pages 104 to 121, chapter to the wives, is about active alcoholism in the marriage. The alcoholic is still drinking. There's 4 tremendous classifications of alcoholics in that chapter based on their relative desire to stop drinking. Category 1, 2, 3, and 4. Fascinating reading. But there is this piece of advice on page 104 that makes the whole chapter worth reading. The Al-Anon program adopted this sentence as part of their literature. No situation is too difficult. No situation is too difficult and no unhappiness too great to be overcome. The whole chapter is about getting God's help to make that true. When we read these chapters, we have to remember we're supposed to help the family get God's help as well. Family afterwards about living with the newly sober alcoholic. The wives deals with the one that's still drinking. Family afterward deals with the one newly sober. New recovery in the family, spiritual solution. Page 122, meet upon the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. 2 employers, lack of understanding in the workplace, still brings up the spiritual solution. And Hank admits, the guy who wrote this chapter, Hank P., I did not understand alcoholism. We had to place recovery above everything. And then, of course, a vision for you is just sensational. It's about the AA fellowship, summarizes the program, brings God in, the spiritual solution. It has a few observations like escape disaster together, commence your common journey, and then on page 164, which I'm going to come back to tonight in a few minutes and close with that. That God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. That's a promise. On page 164, it's before the Dr. Bob story and all the other stories. It's before the appendices. You've worked this whole program. You've worked these 12 steps. You've even slogged your way through chapter 7, 8, and 9. You've enjoyed the prose poem of chapter 11, A Vision for You, because that's what it is, some of the most beautiful writing in big books in A Vision for You. And you get to that, page 164. Here's a wonderful promise. God will constantly disclose more to you and us. It does not say reveal. A reveal is like a magic trick. In fact, in the magic business, that's what they call it, the reveal. Well, he didn't really cut her in 2. That's a reveal. We say, God will reveal. No, the word is disclose. Big difference. A disclosure is not a trick. I only have to do one thing to participate in the disclosure, and that's keep enough of me out of the way to receive. I'm not here to get. I'm here to receive the disclosure. And let me guarantee you this, no matter how long you've been in this deal, if you've been walking into church since you were 2 years old, that's wonderful. You have a sensational relationship with God, that's wonderful. Or you think God sucks, that's wonderful. At least God is in the sentence. If you're so angry at God, you can't stand the idea and I'm making you sick just saying God 15 times in 30 seconds, at least that's a relationship. God will constantly, that means every minute of every day. God is trying to disclose something to us either from the inside of us or from the outside of us. We don't know. You ever had an intuitive thought? Ever had why didn't I think of that before? Talk to your sponsor. He says, yeah, I think that's a good idea. You might want to follow up on that. That's a disclosure. I'll close with this. My name is Bill. I am an alcoholic and have been since the day I was born. Didn't know it till I was 30. Well, I knew it when I was 25 in the prison. And then I drank for 14 more years anyway because I was kind of a know-it-all. And if you're a know-it-all, what other people say is useless. And I quit 1,000 times, 10,000 times, but I couldn't stop starting. And I finally got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I finally got a sponsor, and I finally learned to stop starting, and I finally worked these 12 steps. And even though I haven't had a drink in over 42 years, I still try to practice these spiritual principles, 12 steps, in every relationship, every day. Keyword, try. I fall short every day. How it works, we read it tonight. We seek spiritual progress. We claim spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. Disregard Yoda. He told Luke, don't try, just do. Here's to you, Yoda. I love Yoda, but try matters. Try counts. Do the best you can. Be willing. These are my spiritual principles. This is what I got my application boiled down to today. Be willing today, Bill. This is me speaking to me. You get to eavesdrop, okay? This is just between you, me and me right now, which is my favorite conversation. We get all, it's actually, there's more than two of us. We get all the me's together. Why do you think they call it a meeting? Think about it, Jim. Be willing. Admit my powerlessness over a lot more than just alcohol. Not live in the delusion that I don't need help from you and God. Be honest about my need for God's help and that I need to seek God's help every day. This isn't about want to. This is about need to. I can't afford to wait till I want to. I get up each day and start doing it because I need to. And you know what happens when you start doing what you need to? One day you wake up and realize, I do want to. And I want to tonight. I want to be here. I want to be sober. I want to be not picking up that first drink. And I want to let you and God keep helping me grow my spiritual awakening. So my need to and my want to, at least in that area, are in sync. Be open-minded to seek and receive spiritual help on God's terms and God's time. We don't wait well. I often think God is late. Dude, come on. I'm never late. I'm often early. God is never late. Continue daily self-exam to limit my selfishness, dishonesty, resentments, and fears, and to guide me away. To guide me away from self-will run riot toward God's will. Be responsible and accountable for admitting and amending my wrong words and deeds. Seek to keep God in the center of my life all day, every day. Thy will be done. Try to do it. I don't do it perfectly. I miss some days a lot. Try to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Often by saying nothing. Best service I can usually provide is not tell people what I'm thinking. I want to read page 164. I know we're out of time, so please tolerate this. It is just so good. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. pull the ripcord. That's what suggest means. We realize we know only a little. Know-it-all alcoholics put that in print. That's humility. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Got to ask. Got to try to stay open to receive. Ask him in your morning meditation. Ask him. Don't tell him. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. 10, 11, 12 keeps our house in order. Obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with God is right. That's the centerpiece, the relationship with the God of my understanding. That's the centerpiece. Great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Amen, and thank you, AA on the Rocks, for this privilege. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.